Hello, everyone. This is MamaCita with Classy Gamer Gals, and I welcome you to another open mic podcast. And tonight's interview, I have a special guest, Kel L of TIC or TIC Gaming Network. Welcome, Kel L.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. I'm excited and nervous at the same time.
Nervous? Don't be nervous. I think I'm more nervous than you are.
Oh no, you got it handled.
Oh, thanks. Well, I mean, you've been here. You've been in my seat before. I haven't been
Yes.
in your shoes, so this should be interesting. And let me say this: you've come a mighty long way. Well, I remember your interview with Phil Spencer. Were you nervous?
I was absolutely nervous. I think we all were. It's funny that you say that because at the time, and this is a big shout out to our old team member Mike Unified, who was a part of the crew at the time. He had reached out to Phil Spencer at the right time. It was all about right time, right place. And Phil was just making a transition into becoming the head of Xbox, and we were just becoming like an upstart kind of like show on YouTube before we started to transition into other things. And it was really cool because with Phil, he's such a down to earth person, and we had already been chatting with him prior to that, and him giving us the opportunity to come on the show was a very eye-opening thing. And not only did it put us on the map, it kind of really gave us our identity overall, because we were just super nervous at the time. I'm sitting up here trying to think of the perfect questions to ask this guy, things that I would want to ask him at the same time, trying to be a great source for the fans and get their questions answered as well. And when he came on the show, man, it was like water. It wasn't nothing where we felt nervous. We were feeling like we're going to be jostling over our words, anything like that. It just was so natural, and the conversation that we had off of the recording, off the record, was just awesome as well. So I'm very grateful for Phil Spencer and the opportunity he gave us, because it's really helped us become who we are today, and I think that really pushed us to new heights.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that was a turning point to placing you on the path you're on today?
I definitely would say that. I look at other podcasters and I have nothing but the utmost respect for them, and I aspire to be like them. The guys out there that's on YouTube now that are out there chatting and having natural conversations, just about any topic, whether it's Xbox, whether it's PlayStation, for it doesn't matter. You're just talking about gaming. I think for us, it was one of those things that we always dreamed of, because prior to talking to Phil and being an Xbox podcast, we wanted to be different. We wanted to do something different. So for us, it was more about trying to present Xbox in a different light without the controversy of trying to be in competition or show some type of competitive spirit, but just show that this is what's great about Xbox and why you should be interested. And these are the things that's out there currently that's not true. But having Phil come on the show, it kind of was like we said, okay, eventually someday we'll reach out to Phil and see if we can get him on the show. But having him come on so early was like, whoa, we're at the top. Where do we go from here? Yeah. It's like, we don't know what to do after this. How do we follow this up? And, usually you start from the bottom, you work your way up. But when you start from the top, it's a different entirely perspective. So, we had to reevaluate what we wanted to do, how we wanted to approach it. And that interview hit so many news outlets. It was an amazing feeling to get that amount of recognition at the time. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to boast or anything, but to be acknowledged by, I won't say your peers, but to be acknowledged by these mega sites like IGN or GameSpot and things like that, the places that you read that you don't think you would ever be on because you don't work for them, was an amazing feeling. So we wanted to continue to pursue that feeling and kind of continue to pursue that identity of being a place where we can now speak with Xbox executives and get the fans to know, what's happening with Xbox, because there was so many questions at the time. So getting fans to know what was happening with the Xbox, what direction they were going, and building a relationship with Microsoft was super important to us. And then we branched out from there into developers and indie developers, and we've become really great friends with indie developers. So it was an awesome transition, and I'm very grateful for that, because it really started us on the path to where we are today.
Have you had the opportunity to actually meet Phil Spencer?
Yes, I did actually. I met Phil at E3. I met him twice actually. Yes, twice. First time I met him was at the Microsoft conference. I got the chance to be on the floor. Met a ton of people on that floor.
Wow.
I actually met Major Nelson 3 times, which is funny. I met him at E3. I met him at the Windows 10 launch event, which I was invited to, which was awesome. And I met him at PAX East. So that was really cool.
Okay. I saw a tweet of yours the other day suggesting to Phil Spencer that he look into bringing more Japanese RPGs to the Xbox One, and you suggested he looked into building a studio in Japan. How confident are you that he would take heed to this suggestion and make this happen?
Not confident at all. I mean, I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
I think a lot of things that whatever Microsoft has planned, they have something already in place planned. I don't think that Phil would take any one suggestion other than his own advisors, and that's just the honest truth. The Xbox fan base who play Japanese RPGs are niche. They're small. There's not many of them, and you probably won't get a large amount of sales on it. I think the problem with that is when I got a 360, they had this whole thing with they were bringing all these Japanese RPGs over to Xbox, and I'm an older gamer, so I grew up on the Super Nintendos and the original, PlayStation and Dreamcast, and I was really into the Japanese games. That's what I grew up on. But as I got older and Xbox got introduced, I just started to gravitate more towards Xbox and the online aspect and the social aspect, and it just became something different that I wouldn't get on PlayStation 2 or I wouldn't get on, a GameCube or something like that. So eventually I just felt that the Xbox platform had better games in every single genre, whether it was shooters, whether it was racing, whether it was some type of fighting game or something like that. I just felt like they just had all these great games, but I never lost my love for the Japanese RPG because that's what I grew up on. So when they presented all these RPGs on the 360, to me it was like the best of both worlds. I had everything, and to this day I think 360 is probably one of my favorite consoles of all time. But the Xbox One just has had such a rough journey and such a rough start that the Japanese developer completely ignores the Xbox. And it's sad because, yes, the Xbox may not have as many sales in the East, let alone anywhere near 1 million sales in Japan itself, but there's still 20 million consoles out there. That's something that we know. We do know that there's a large presence in the US. We do know that there's a large presence in the UK. So to just ignore that presence, to me, it's just kind of baffling. And I just feel like if you're not able to bring those type of titles to the Xbox One, then you should build a studio and hire talent out of Japan themselves to work on these titles for your platform.
Well,
and
why do you think, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to ask you, what since you touched that particular topic, why do you think the Japanese developers are choosing to ignore the Xbox One right now? Do you think, is it perhaps they feel like the Japanese RPGs aren't going to resonate with them, or what's the rationale behind that?
The reality of it is that it won't. I think the Xbox has built the stigma of being the shooter box and not being very diverse, which the Xbox One itself, that's not true. It's actually been a very diverse console this generation, and early on with 360, it was a very diverse console. I think the later years and the Kinect years is really what changed everything for the direction Microsoft was going. I still to this day think Red Ring of Death had a very big role in a lot of the decision making when it came to the Xbox, because there's billions and billions of dollars was spent on recovering and remodeling new hardware so that way they wouldn't have Red Ring of Death again, and just giving away Xboxes and honoring people's warranties and things like that. That was $1 billion negative loss for them. It really hurt the brand. So if you're looking at it from the perspective of a gamer and as a company, if my company is spending all this money to fix a mistake that we made, how am I going to invest in new games? How am I going to put more money into new IPs? And I think the later years showed that. Instead, they just invested in sequels and things like that, or timed exclusive things where they didn't have to put a ton of money in or a ton of resources in. And, it transitioned over to where Microsoft wasn't such a large player in the Eastern market. Even though they weren't a large player with 360, they had a presence. This time around, I think the Japanese developer, they don't have to acknowledge the Xbox because Sony is a dominant console. Nintendo does so well over there with their handheld, and the Xbox is not relevant. So if it's not relevant in their home country, why are they developing games for it? I still think to this day that is something that is kind of like a terrible way to look at it. But it's not to say that all Japanese developers are ignored. You still have Platinum, who's making Scalebound. You have Armature, who's working on Recore. So those are two great games. I think they're trying to find a Japanese studio to work on Phantom Dust, because that was a Japanese-built game as well. But just overall, I just look at so many games that's hitting PlayStation, and they're not coming to Xbox. And it's mostly just third-party exclusives. It's not like Sony owns them. So, my whole thing, and again, just to finish up, is that Microsoft, to me, needs to make a better effort out there, or at least maybe do the reverse. If they can't get to JRPGs, start making more Western RPGs for their own platform. Reach out to BioWare, reach out to CD Projekt Red, and start developing some exclusive titles that you can only get on the Xbox or only on Xbox and Windows 10, but they're Western RPGs that the Westernized fan base loves, because they love BioShock. I mean, they love they love Mass Effect. I'm about to say BioShock. Yeah. They love Mass Effect. They love BioWare. They love Knights of the Old Republic. They love Fallout. They love Witcher. Those are the type of games that appeal to the Xbox fan base. So I would concentrate on that if I'm not able to get, the Eastern games over to my platform.
Okay. Well, let me shift things just a little bit. Of all the things you could have chosen to do, why podcasting, YouTube, or the gaming media?
Well, I've been a gamer. I think a lot of us out here, especially the hardcore, have been gaming since we were young, very young. My first console was an Atari, and that was when Nintendo was out. I didn't have a Nintendo. So when my mother bought me a Super Nintendo, which was really my first true platform, it was an amazing experience, and I was hooked ever since. And I've been a gamer since then. I didn't have a 64. I jumped to PlayStation, from PlayStation to Dreamcast, from Dreamcast to PS2, from PS2 to an Xbox, GameCube, and then so forth from then on. And I didn't initially think about being a podcaster until this generation, because social media had become such a big dominant thing. Back in the day, it was all about word of mouth in video game stores or your friends in school or a magazine. Now with social media and YouTube and the like, you can really spread so much information so quickly in a matter of minutes or seconds. And there was just early on, like the first couple of months in, there was just so much talk about how Xbox still had DRM, or how the Kinect could still, spy on you, or there just was so many still negative things out there that weren't true. And I didn't see anybody talking about that. The only thing I heard people talk about was why Xbox was better, or why PlayStation was better, or why this person was a negative person, a bad person or whatever. So I just wanted to try to get out there and put information out there I think that was viable and logical, and that people could try to see as the truth, and not make it about myself or somebody else, or make it about drama, but actually talk about the Xbox as a positive platform.
Okay. I'm sure balancing family, career, and now all these newfound responsibilities with TICGN Network has its challenges. Am I right?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's a typical day like for you?
Oh man, it's very busy, man. I'm originally from New York, so I'm not I'm not too unfamiliar with the hustle and bustle of doing multiple things at the same time. But it's tough when you first of all, any man out there whose wife is not a gamer, okay, it's tough.
Yeah.
Let's just make that abundantly clear. It is tough. She's not going to understand exactly what I'm doing, or why what I'm trying to do is important, or why I need to be on a laptop, or why I need to answer this email or respond to this tweet and things like that. But the great thing about it is that she does support me, and that's a lot of love, and I appreciate that. I have a 3-year-old son. He's a handful. He's my first, and I have another one on the way. So it's been tedious, man. It's been a handful. But I got a great team, man. I got a great team of people. We try to hit all facets of social media, from Twitch to Twitter to the website to the podcast. We've been doing very, very extremely well on mobile. And I'm really grateful for the mobile fan base. I didn't realize how big we were globally until I started to look at the global places that we are. And when you start seeing countries like, the United Emirates of Korea, or, the United Arab States, or Japan, or Sri Lanka, or, you start realizing that you have global reach. And I'm very grateful for that, man. I'm really grateful for all the fans out there that support us. And but yeah, it's no easy task, but I'm glad that I have a great team that really picks up a lot of the slack.
When you were putting your ideas and thoughts together for the TICGN Network, what was your ultimate goal or vision?
Well, when I first started, I reached out to Brandon, B Money 101, and Mike Unified, and I started pitching these ideas to them, and they started giving me feedback on a name and things like that. And the first thing that I didn't want was to be something Xbox. That was the first thing I didn't want. I didn't want the name to be associated with Xbox, because as much as I love Xbox, if I wanted to go multi-platform, if I wanted to do something else, I could be able to do that because the name is not associated with Xbox. I think that's the trouble with some podcasters who have to start over, is because they associate their names with a brand, and now they're synonymous with that brand. Okay. So I wanted to create something that was different, but I also wanted it to represent that we were really on the inside of things. We were going to do our best to really be, maybe not insiders, but in a space where most people weren't. And I think we've done that successfully in speaking to a lot of the executives and getting scoops and getting information, and having conversations with them and stuff like that, and getting that out to the public. And eventually that gets out to the other major websites, and that news trickles down to other people. And a lot of people don't realize it came from us, but it came from us, at least in the Xbox spectrum, it came from us. So as we started to get further and further along, because we weren't as drama induced, or we weren't as maybe as funny as some others, YouTube has been a great place for us. But as a podcast, we really wanted to be a podcast. So focusing on being a true podcast, and focusing on getting on iTunes and Android and the Windows Phone at the time, and other apps, was super important for us. And that's something that we accomplished. Growing bigger and making the brand bigger had to extend beyond Xbox to sustain ourselves. Because as great as the Xbox fan base is, if you limit yourself because of the fan base and not expand your brand, then you never grow. I can only grow so much as the fan base that I have. So the podcast itself had to stay Xbox, because it was something that I think a lot of fans wanted, and I think a lot of fans really appreciate it. So Tick Podcast will always be Xbox. But TICGN had to go multi-platform, the website itself.
Did you experience any pushback because of that decision?
No. No, none at all. Actually, I think my entire team was excited to go multi-platform, because I think everybody's gamers. When you play games, I don't think, at least in my team, they don't think that limiting yourself to one platform is the right thing to do, when there's so many great games on different platforms. Even for the Wii U itself, even though it may not be as appealing to some, there's some really good games on the Wii U. So for them, they were excited and they jumped to the challenge and they've done extremely well. I mean, the new converted site from just being completely Xbox and PC to going full multi-platform has has seen a jump, a spike in viewership, and I'm very grateful for that.
Okay. What you mentioned, B Money and Mike, those that you have on board. You were also able to get Hard Knock Gamers of hardknockgamers.com, and I see
Hmm.
Anchorman and a few
Hmm.
others on board with your mission. How did that come to pass?
Vision. That's it. I
Okay.
think at one point I wanted to be the official podcast of Xbox. And then over time, I started realizing, and a lot of people always ask me, why do you want to be the official podcast of Xbox? And in my head, I'm like, to me, I feel like I already am the official podcast of Xbox. I have Phil Spencer and a few other people on the show. But really, I just thought about traveling and going to places, locales like Japan and, Brazil or something like that, and representing Xbox and doing all those cool things as a podcast, even though Major Nelson is like kind of the official podcast for Xbox. But over time, I realized that if there was something that I agree with, unlike Major, I couldn't disagree with it. Like I couldn't give a true factual opinion on what I don't like or what I don't disagree with because I would be representing the brand. So, what I wanted to do was I decided to build my own thing, build my own brand and keep pushing. Unfortunately, Mike Unified is no longer with Tick and things like that. He's doing his own
Okay.
thing. Shout
Okay.
out to him and RGM, Real Game Media.
Okay.
He's blowing up his own thing now. But Brandon B Money 101 is with us. Skittles 1323, who runs our Twitch streams with our all girl team,
Okay. Okay.
which is really dope.
Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to those guys, Fallout Girl, Ember, and Lorraine. So very
Okay.
proud of them over there on that team.
Okay. Well, tell me how you hope to distinguish yourself from other mainstream media gaming types.
So, with the Hard Knock team, they had just split from We Game Here. Shout out to We Game Here. I'm cool with Darian. Darian's a good guy. And I remember speaking with Kid Smooth. I was very cool with Kid. I was cool with Fame. I was cool with Dre. At least I met him once or twice. And those guys had a vision, man. They always kind of had the vision to want to be more than just a podcast. And that's how I felt as well. I always wanted to be more than just a podcast. Why limit myself when there's people out there that love your content, that want your content and things like that, but maybe also want to be able to follow what you're doing or want something more from you. You can always be more. You can always be greater. So I just pitched to those guys, man, straight up. Like, listen, I know you guys just starting out. You got your Hard Knock thing going and everything, and I respect it. I want to continue that brand here at the Inner Circle and stuff, but I also want to bring you guys into the Inner Circle to become a part of the Inner Circle and things like that. And yeah, of course, I mean, anytime you try to bring somebody into something, it's going to be, maybe a little resistance, and there's a lot of conversation that has to happen. There's a lot of bumping of heads and just trying to compromise and figure things out. But in the end, it's all worked out. The entire team is happy. Everyone is supporting each other, and it's been a great, great move and great transition for us so far.
And do you hope that people will view you as another source for their gaming media?
I would hope so. I would hope so. I think the plan eventually, right now, we have a few podcasts, building a podcast network of people with good opinions and good speech and able to portray themselves in a way to the public is really important. So having Anchorman, who's a very opinionated person, to me was a great pickup. Kid Smooth and his team over there at Writer's Block, they do a great job focusing on multi-plat games. So right now, currently, I don't have a need for PlayStation or Nintendo podcasts, but it's not to say that it won't be something I look to invest to in the future. And we try to hit all facets. We have a comic book podcast, we have a movie podcast, and things like that. So, we've been doing some really great things, and eventually you'll be able to catch all those podcasts on iTunes as well.
Okay. I think it's fair to say that you and your gaming network team are trying to represent what many believe is missing in our gaming news and media balance, fair, and objective reporting on gaming consoles and games that are released. Do you feel there are journalists, bloggers, podcasters in our gaming media who have a hard time separating their personal feelings towards said company or product and report objectively?
Absolutely. Even for myself, I must be included in that. And the reason why I say that is because they cannot be any. If I'm an Xbox podcaster, I have to have some sort of slight favoritism towards the Xbox. But at the same time, I think, like you said, people don't recognize the good and the negative. And if you're not able to recognize the positives of another console or another brand, then you're just being blind and you're playing favorites too much. There's nothing wrong with liking a particular console or wanting to talk about that particular console only, but to completely ignore another console like it doesn't exist, that's not being true. That's not being true to media. I think the reason why I built this brand the way it is because the one thing that we don't have is that we're not journalists. Nobody has gone to schools to get an education as a writer or be a journalist. No, we're gamers. And my goal is to try to present this brand to the gamer from gamers, but try to be as close to being as professional as possible. Even if I can get us to be 85% as good as some of the writers out there, or 85% as good as maybe an IGN, in my opinion, to me, is better, because of the simple fact that the one thing that we don't have to worry about is we don't have to worry about having corporations tell us what to do. We don't have to worry about somebody paying us for marketing rights or doing anything like that. We are who we are as gamers, and we'll always talk as gamers, and you'll get that perspective from us 100% all the time. And I think that's a great thing about our brand.
Okay, and I know, do you call it, is it TICGN or is it TICGN Network? Just so I can make sure I am.
It's for the website is TICGN.com. It's called the Inner Circle Game Network, is what we call it, and we're trying to put a big focus on the full name instead of TIC. Because the Inner Circle Game Network is really important. We want that brand to really stand out and people to recognize what it is. I mean, TIC is the abbreviation. Yeah. I tell people TIC all the time, and I know a lot of people recognize this as TIC, but for the actual network itself, it's the Inner Circle Game Network.
Okay. And so how does the Inner Circle Game Network establish itself as a gathering place for all gaming fans, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, PC, without one particular fan base feeling they are on the lower end of the totem pole?
I think that's a difficult task, because fan bases are just built on whoever has the larger install. You can't kick 50%. If I have 100, let's say, for example, if I have 1,000 people on the website and they're PlayStation guys, and I have 500 people on the website and they're Xbox guys, that's just numbers. There's 35 million PlayStations out there. You're going to get an increase, and I can't kick the 500 out just to make it balanced. But what we can do is that we can report the news equally. We can moderate things justly. And everybody should be able to have their opinion, and they shouldn't have to be worried about feeling scared to say something or feeling threatened to say something because they're going to get harped on by 50 fanboys, regardless whether it's Xbox or PlayStation. So for us, what we really want to do is establish ourselves as a great place for gamers to come and get gaming news and recognize that they're getting it from people who are just like them and think like them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really glad you said that, because I like people to judge me by the content of my character, my actions, my views, and I do my very best to do the same with others. Why do you think there are some gamers who are quick to categorize all fans of one particular group and judge them all on the actions or opinions of others?
Because they're the same as the ones they're judging. It's really that simple. A fanboy will judge a fanboy. And the people who don't judge fanboys easily recognize it and move on from it. And that's just the truth. I mean, a lot of times you have people who, feel like they aren't a fanboy, and they'll support another platform, and you'll see them tweet certain things out, and that it only ever favors that particular platform and stuff like that. And then they only roll in the groups that go ahead and do the things that they're kind of hypocritical towards, by sitting up there saying they're no fanboys, but you sit up there and support the people that are putting out this negative stereotype towards another fan base or another group and stuff like that. So I'm not going to sit up here and act like there aren't good people who are fans. Mm-hmm. And then you also have to recognize that there are some people that are just doing it because that's what brings in the views, whether it's a podcaster, whether it's a website. That's what brings in the views. The drama, the clickbaits, the flame baits, like all that stuff brings in views, and it brings in content, and it brings in controversy, and that's what sells. Mm-hmm. So you may have people that are like that, but people in general, I think, really just want to see their brand. It's like sports teams, man. They just want to see their brand win. They want to see their brand on top, and I think that's really all it comes down to.
Yes, and that kind of leads to my next statement and question, because many would say that the majority of gaming fans are not radical social media extremists. That one thing we all have in common, regardless of platform choice, is we love to game. Mm-hmm. Should that be the emphasis, or do we concentrate too much on our differences and not enough on what we all have in common, and that's gaming?
I think that gaming is so important, but the bigger thing is that we don't respect developers. Gamers don't respect developers enough, and it's because, yes, there's a product that we purchase, but don't understand the work that goes into it. So I think as gamers, we need to be able to definitely make it all about gaming. It shouldn't matter what the game is. And there's nothing wrong with cheering for your platform when something is really, really hot, or doing a debate about why one game may be better than another, even if it is exclusive to one platform. But at the same time, I think I get a lot of people who, they get a game and they don't like it and they completely trash a developer, or they call the developer lazy and things like that. There's a lot of factors that goes into developing games that a lot of people don't understand, and they don't know, they don't recognize. And it's kind of disappointing that gamers, this generation or nowadays, because social media is so prominent, that it's just so fickle. Gamers are so fickle. They are so quick to turn on you in a heartbeat and really just rip you apart. So it's a tough balancing act, man. But I think that gamers definitely should make it all about games, make it all about good games, and definitely support developers, man. Support developers, because if you want something innovative and you want something new, you have to be able to support the creativity that developers are trying to do. And things like that. And when you start ripping creativity, or you start ripping new things that you may not agree with, what winds up happening? Those developers never attempt it again, and you get the same generic stuff that everyone's always crying about.
All right. Are you excited for E3 this year, and are you going?
I am excited. I am very excited, and I am definitely going. My hotel is booked. Plane tickets are booked. I just filled out some things for Microsoft to be at their conference. Bethesda invited us this year to their conference. We're going to try to get to Fan Fest this year. We missed last year, so I'll be coming into LA on a Friday, so I can be at Fan Fest that Saturday. So we've got a great schedule planned. We got 2 media badges, so we'll be at E3 doing our jobs. Okay. And I hope it's a lot of fun, man. I really do. I'm excited.
Okay, are you looking forward to any particular game announcements or features on either of the platforms?
Oh, man. I had Mike Ybarra on the show in February, and one of the things he said was that Microsoft should be expecting 3 big announcements for the platform, just as big as backwards compatibility was when it first came out, when it was first announced. I don't know what those announcements could be. I would assume one of them is definitely OG Xbox backwards compatibility. I think that'd be tough, though. And I had a conversation with this before, because some of the games are just so old that the studios don't exist. So how do you get the licensing? Who does it belong to? One of those type of things. So OG Xbox is a tough thing to do, maybe on select games, but probably first party would be much, much easier. I don't know what the other two can be. They have the anniversary update. I do expect a reveal of a console though.
Okay.
That is something that's supposed to be big.
Okay. That
Yeah.
was actually one of my next questions for you.
hmm
I was going to actually ask you, what did you think about the rumors, new Xbox One hardware?
I think they're true. I absolutely think they're true. I know there's a lot of rumors going around. Some people believe it's a slim. Some people believe it's like Xbox 1.5. What I think it is if it's based on what we've read about some other rumors, like the FCC finding out that there were two SKUs coming out of Microsoft for two hardware SKUs, two different hardware SKUs. I would assume that one is a slim Xbox and one is probably the newer updated Xbox. And they're going to drop the price. I guarantee you they'll drop the price of the original Xbox to probably like 299. And I wouldn't be surprised if a slim was 400 and the new upgraded Xbox is 500. But I think the new upgraded Xbox won't drop this year. If it does, I would be completely shocked. But I would think that it would drop next year, like Nintendo is trying to drop theirs in March.
Okay. The PS4 Neo. What's your thoughts on that?
I'm interested. I don't have a PlayStation 4, so if I'm going to get one, I'm definitely going to get one that's has all the bells and whistles.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still on the fence. I definitely want to check out the NX and see what it's producing, and see what games they have because I was a big, Super Nintendo fan back in the day, and I just want to see Nintendo become relevant in the console space again.
Yes, yes. And they are showing one game at E3, The Legend of Zelda. Good move or a bad move?
I think if they show it in all its glory of what fans, because what sucks is that the Wii U fan base are the ones hurting from this delay. They're the ones that's hurting. So if you can show them that this is what we've produced and this is what you can possibly get on the NX, it gives those fans an opportunity to see what's being presented, how the game looks, and then say, I want the NX. And that's really what you want to do. You want to pitch the NX as much as possible, especially being that it's not releasing this year. And you want to try to gain the respect of fans. I think Nintendo has some of the best first-party titles out there, but a lot of them are platformers, and a lot of them just aren't mature. And I think that's why Nintendo lost a lot of the adults, is because they didn't grow up with us.
Mm-hmm.
They still want to stay family-orientated. There's nothing wrong with that, but you still have to recognize the people who grew up on your console, and I don't think they're recognizing us in a way where we want mature games or we want better action games or we want, things that appeal to us.
What, in your opinion, what do you think was the rationalization behind announcing the NX release for March 2017, missing out on, a huge holiday sales for 2016?
I think it allowed them to build a good first party launch. I think it also allowed the Wii U consumers to really start saving up money to make this transition. And then finally, I think that it's just a wait and see. Let's see what Sony's doing with the Neo. Let's see what the Xbox is doing. I think there's always a smart approach to a wait and see approach as long as you don't wait too long. That's why I think it's important that Microsoft announces their new hardware at this E3, in my opinion, because I don't think between the NX and Sony coming out with the Neo, if they don't announce something close to that or in the realm of new hardware, all the attention will be on these two consoles for the next year, for the rest of the year. I don't care what games Microsoft announced. This is what people are going to be focusing on. The two new hardwares that's coming out, one at the end of the year and one in March. So I think it's important that Microsoft stays in that conversation.
EA and Activision have opted not to hold their own press conferences at E3 this year. Has E3 lost its shine, in your opinion?
No, it's still the biggest international, conference in the world. Being there last year was an amazing experience for me, but there's a lot of people, and if you're not getting online to play any games, and if you get on late, you'll be there all day. I don't think it's lost its shine. I just think that companies want more spotlight on their games. It's more spotlight on what they're doing, because a lot of times hardcore gamers really just focus on Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation. That's really what they want to see, and you always get third parties shown at those events as well. So when it comes to like EA, we know what's happening at EA. We know they're going to show a new Madden. We know they're going to show, maybe a new NBA Live. And it just kind of happens. Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed, like you just have these genres, and if you're lucky to see something new, you're lucky. But it's really the three manufacturers that make all the noise. So I think that those guys holding their own press conferences ahead of schedule before things really pop off was a smart thing.
Okay. Okay. Any exciting interviews with top figureheads or game devs that you can share with us?
Well, currently, I don't want to say it. I
Okay.
don't want to say it. I'll keep it a secret for now. But no, we're definitely reaching out. We have some people that we will have on later in the year. Some people that would love to come on the show to talk to us. It's oh my god, it's Gamer Boss from Rare. Why can't I say his name? It's Duncan. Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot his name. That's embarrassing.
That's all right. I mean, I do
Craig
that all the
Duncan.
time. I do
I
that
got
all the
it.
time. Okay.
Yeah, it's at Gamer Boss, the head of Rare, Craig Duncan.
Okay.
He'll be,
Okay.
we'll be able to chat with him later in the year to get him on the show to talk about Sea of Thieves. I know I've spoken with Ken Lobb at length, Adam is Green at length, and things like that. So, there's a few people we've reached out to, and there's a few indie devs that we've spoken to that we'll have on, and even some AAA devs that we spoke to that we'll eventually have on. But, because things are so close to E3, nobody's really trying to talk about their surprises or talk about their games. But definitely after, you can expect a lot of content coming out of Tick Network, as well as a lot of content coming out for E3.
Okay. Before I let you go, it's December 25th, 2018, Christmas morning.
Hmm.
A 10-year-old kid opens up his or her shiny new gaming console or PC.
Hmm.
Mom and dad want to know what type of games are available for little Johnny or little Carmen. So they Google or Bing that question on their phones, and in the top three results of the search is an article by the Inner Circle Game Network, wedged between IGN and GameSpot. Is that the future you have envisioned for yourself and your team?
That would be an amazing thing if that was to happen. Definitely. I absolutely. I'm confident in the approach that we're trying to take. I think one of the things we're trying to do to separate ourselves is try to be the most engaging, um, I guess you could say, engaging video game media to be with when it comes to gamers. And like we'll have events. Like one of the events I plan to do after E3 when I get back in July is something called Xbox Live Offline, and I'll be hosting an event in Orlando, Florida, for Xbox gamers in Florida at the Microsoft store at the Florida Mall. So, we're trying to engage with the community. We're trying to get the fans to come out of their homes and meet the people who live in their area that are Xbox fans as well, or PlayStation fans when we get to that point. And we have connects everywhere. We plan to do one in New York. We plan to do one in London. We plan to do one in Texas. We plan to do one in LA. So this is not some little thing that, this is going to be something we do yearly. And becoming engaged with the community and getting feedback from the community is super important. So I think that's how we separate ourselves from the IGNs and the GameSpots. But I think the first thing we need to do is try to make sure that we get our content out as soon as possible. And that might be one of our weaknesses, because unlike IGN and unlike GameSpot, we don't have a mega corporation that pays us. Everybody's doing things because they love to do it. And a lot of content we get our own. We do get our own content via email from developers and executives and things like that. But a lot of content also is shared from other websites and things like that we give, source source respect to and things like that. And we report that news as well. So it's just important. People have jobs, people have lives. And I always tell them that that comes first. But I'm just grateful to have such a great team that are really putting forth such an effort for the community, and the people who come to TICGN will not be disappointed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Cal L and the Inner Circle Gaming Network for joining me on my Open Mic
No,
podcast.
thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and I'm very, very grateful.
All right. All right. Well, there we go. This is my, this is MamaCita's Open Mic podcast, and I bid you good night.